RDA is currently being implemented in the region. After the demonstration, both will be happy, I'm sure, to answer your questions. And just as an announcement, you heard it perhaps, this part of the meeting will be recorded. So I think Michaela would like to start to give us an inside view in what the DACH region is doing so far.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to share my screen and start with a little presentation and then change to the STAR documentation platform and show it live. RDA DACH is the RDA-based cataloging standard for the DACH region. DACH is an abbreviation for the countries Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, as Renate said. I would like to start with a short explanation of the name of our web tool, the STAR documentation platform, followed by showing you the documentation platform live. And in the end, I would like to give you a brief insight of how we work cooperatively in the DACH region and about the further development of the STAR documentation platform and the cataloging standards for the DACH region. You see a screenshot of the landing page of the documentation platform, in German Dokumentationsplattform des Standardisierungsausschusses, a very long name, in English Documentation Platform of the Committee for Library Standards. The short name for this, we use STAR Dokumentationsplattform, STAR Platform in English, STAR Documentation Platform. STAR is the abbreviation for the Standardisierungsausschuss for our Committee for Library Standards. The Committee for Library Standards is responsible for this documentation platform. It is developed under its responsibility, and it's a collaborative alliance of cultural and academic organizations and institutions in the DACH region. Its aim is to ensure the use of common standards for cataloging, interfaces, and formats in all library networks and other cultural institutions in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. It promotes the interdisciplinary harmonization of cataloging and data networking in the DACH region. Agreements on standards help us to ensure that data can be exchanged between libraries, library networks, and other cultural institutions in the DACH region. They are a requirement for cooperative cataloging, and data exchange is very important in the DACH region. The STAR, the Committee for Library Standards, is responsible for cataloging standards like RDA DACH, for the Integrated Authority File, GND, for subject cataloging instructions, and also for data formats. Now I would like to present the platform live. I change to this website. If you follow this link, you see the landing page of the documentation platform, the Committee for Library Standards. The platform is freely accessible. You all can use this link and have a look. On this site, you find a short explanation what this is and information about the current status. We have an agreement with ELA Publishing, which allows us to present RDA DACH on our own website. Of course, we have an RDA Toolkit license as well. The instructions and guidelines on the documentation platform are only available in German at the moment. In Switzerland, colleagues are currently working on a French translation. It will be published in the next month. In the menu bar on the top, you find the home symbol, which leads you back to the site. The part RDA DACH and GND, the part for authority data. On the right side, you see this little loop symbol. It leads to the full text search on the entire platform. In the lower part of this site, there's a link to the help page and to training materials. These training materials are only about what has changed between the original RDA in the German version and RDA DACH. RDA DACH training materials for beginners will be added in future. I would like to show you the section RDA DACH. GND only contains format information for authority data so far. More will be published in summer 2025. If you click on RDA DACH, you get a site with general information about the standard RDA DACH. On top, the release history with detailed version notes on the specific text changes or additions. You see here the notes, the last revision. The first publication of RDA DACH was in summer 2023. We made 2 releases so far. The last release was published in December 2024. The mouse over here on RDA DACH shows 5 chapters of RDA DACH: general information and guidelines, elements, resource types, application profiles, and the index. If you select Allgemeines, that means general information and guidelines, you get an overview with links to further sites. This part contains general information and guidelines on different topics. For example, about application profiles and status of elements, about recording methods, sources of information, or transcription guidelines. In addition, you can find information about the entities, like work or manifestation, and the agents here. Not all chapters have been published yet. For example, the text about expression and item here will be added later. As an example, I would like to show you the transcription guidelines for normalized transcription. On the left-hand side is the navigation area where you can see the structure of this text and navigate. Each site with guidelines or instructions on our platform is structured in this way. The navigation area on the left-hand side, the text and instructions themselves with various links to other passages on the platform in the main section. For example, you see here a link to the guidance chapter about recording methods. The next part, the next chapter, the elements. This part contains the element descriptions. You can see a list of all elements in RDA DACH here. In this list, it is able to navigate and search in different ways. You can search for a notation of an element or for the element name itself using keywords here on this loop. We created notations for each element, but also for each site with guidelines or lists of vocabulary or something else which needs citation. On the right side, you see information about the WMI entities. You can filter or sort according to these criterion. If you only want to see the elements of the work entity, filter with work. And now you can, if you like, sort the element names alphabetically. Now I will show you the element description for the element title proper, in German Haupttitel. I start a search with the keyword Titel and get all elements with this string in its name. The mouse over shows the definition of an element in German and English according to the RDA registry. If I click on the element title proper, Haupttitel, now we can see all information about this element. First, you find the definition, again in German and English, that we have just seen in the element list as mouse over, now here in this site. In the header of this site, you find various details and information about the WMI entity, manifestation in this case, the recording method, unstructured description as normalized transcription. The RDA reference, the link leads to this element in the official RDA toolkit. Also, we show here the reference to the original RDA toolkit, but not as a link because the countdown clock for the original toolkit is running. The next line shows format information for this element, like Mark 21 and other formats which are used in different library networks in the German-speaking countries. Here, the relations to other elements. In this case, the broader element title of manifestation and the related element parallel title proper. The structure and the relationship of the elements to each other are largely taken from the official RDA toolkit, but a little bit simplified for RDA DACH. We use the terms super and sub-element, broader and narrow element, and related element. Title proper and parallel title proper are on the same level for us. They are related elements for RDA DACH. The status says that in all application profiles, the element title proper is a core element. The value is standard. The mouse over shows an explanation for this value. The next sections are Geltungsbereich Erklärung, that means scope and pre-recording, sources of information, and then the recording instructions. Each paragraph has its own heading, so it's possible to create a link to each paragraph. A click on the small chain symbol here saves the link in the cache, and now the link is copied and you can use it otherwise. Behind this symbol, you find examples. The examples are chosen specifically for German language needs. We differentiate between basic instructions, special instructions, and specific instructions. Basic instructions contain the general instructions for recording a value of this element. The special instructions are given for special aspects that do not occur regularly. The specific instructions are given for special aspects that relate only to specific resource types. In this case, we have specific instructions for multi-part monograph, for serials, for integrating resources, and also for cartographic resources, early printing, printed resources, music resources, and some more. The recording instructions in RDA DACH are mostly taken from the German language version of the original RDA toolkit. we integrated the existing policy statements for the DACH region into the general instruction text. So catalogers only see the instructions that actually apply to them. They don't need to decide between several options or read to and fro between general instructions and policy statements. As Renate Behrens explained in her presentation at the public session, the RSC Outreach Day on 13th of November last year, it was a great effort to translate the RDA instructions from the original RDA toolkit into German just 10 years ago. Now we use this German text and reworded them for RDA DACH. The assignment of our Committee for Library Standards in the project 3R for libraries in the German-speaking countries was to keep the changes for the cataloging practice as low as possible. Remember, we just implemented RDA about 10 years ago, and it's a question of cost, of course. As I said, we integrated the policy statements. We tried to make the text easier to read, more understandable and more usable for catalogers on this occasion. The next part contains guidelines and instructions related to specific resource types. The term resource type is used to describe groups of resources that have a specific type of publication, published or unpublished, or a specific mode of issuance. We distinguish between single unit, multi-part monograph, serial, and integrating resource. Formally belong to a specific group like an electronic resource, or can be assigned to a specific group according to content aspects, like a cartographic or music resource. A resource can belong to several resource types. For example, a multi-part monograph can be published as an e-book and be a cartographic work in terms of content. When describing a resource, the relevant resource type descriptions must be observed depending on the criterion. These guidelines for resource types have partly been newly created for RDA DACH. More resource descriptions, type descriptions are in preparation and will be published in the future. The blue ones here are ready so far. I would like to show you this using as an example the resource type description for academic publications, like a dissertation or thesis. A resource type description contains general information like the definition for this type, information to distinguish it from other resource types, and it shows the specific recording instruction for this resource type from the element descriptions in one place. First, you see here the definition and some general information. Below, all specific instructions from the elements are shown here again. They are sorted by the WEMI entities, first the manifestation elements. At this point, I can demonstrate that the documentation platform does not just contain sites with text, but there is a database behind it. Each instruction, each text section you see here is stored as a single data set in a database structure. We use Wikibase as database environment. If you follow the pen symbol at the bottom of the page on the right, it's really tiny here. You can see the text of this page in Wikibase. This site shows the same text we've seen on the web tool before, but now in the database structure. This technique allows us to display a single paragraph in multiple places on the documentation platform if necessary. If there are corrections, additions, or changes to the text, we only have to make a change in a single place in one data set, and the text is changed in all other affected places at the same time. For example, here the specific instruction for recording and other title information from a dissertation. This instruction comes from the element description for other title information and is embedded here again. In the element description of this element, other title information, I show it here. It is a specific instruction for academic publications. This is the element description for other title information, the basic instructions, and here the specific instructions for academic publications. And you see it's the same text, the same data set. The advantage is that all specific instructions from several elements on the topic of academic publications are presented additionally here in this resource type description in one place. You see here all relevant specific instructions for academic publications. A cataloger can quickly get an overview of what he has to consider for cataloging this special resource type. It's not necessary for the cataloger to search for all relevant elements and look up the specific instructions there. Now let's have a look at the DACH application profiles. This part is still under development. At the moment, we already have a general application profile for published and for unpublished resources. Application profiles for different modes of issuance for a single unit, multi-part monograph, serial, and integrating resource. We have an application profile for a special type of resource here for a music resource. This part here will be completed with application profiles for all resource types as far as possible. At last, an application profile for national libraries in the DACH region. National libraries have to fulfill some special conditions. An RDA DACH application profile provides a tabular overview of all elements that can be recorded for a specific resource type. I will show you the application profile for a monograph as a single unit. Again, you see the notations. We get a list again, and you see the notation of the elements names, and the information on the entities, and the status for each element related to this resource type, to this single unit. We have 3 values: standard, optional, and not allowed. For example, the element key title, we use here the English name for our platform, is not allowed for a single unit because it's for serials. Sometimes you see additional conditions behind the plus. This list of elements is also stored in the database, in Wikibase. Here you see the list of elements again with the status values here in the database structure. Now let's have a look at the resource type and the application profile for music resources. You can follow this link and you see the application profile as element list. But it's also possible to go to the resource type description for music resources if you click on this button here above. Now you see the resource type description. This demonstrates the relationship between resource types and application profiles. If you click again, you come back to the application profile as an element list. Special here for music resources. At present, the application profiles are still unconnected. In future versions, it will be possible to combine application profiles in such a way that you can, for example, view an application profile for a published cartographic resource as a single unit in a single list. Now I would like to finish the live presentation of the STAR documentation platform and return to my PowerPoint presentation. I just want to give you a brief insight into how we work together in the DACH region on standards. Under the roof of the Committee for Library Standards, here above, the STAR community consists of several working groups and expert teams. For example, the working group for cataloging in general, for cataloging of music resources, for manuscripts, performing arts, and some more. The Committee for Library Standards has tasked the working groups and its expert teams working with the maintenance and further development of the standards like the RDA DACH standard. Groups are also working on the implementation of the instructions for authority data and for subject cataloging on the documentation platform. The groups continuously work on the instructions and cooperatively develop adaptations and additions that are incorporated into the releases of the STAR documentation platform. For RDA DACH, we have semi-annual releases. The preparation for publishing a release is divided into 4 phases: the planning, the working, the preview, and the implementation phase. During the planning phase, which lasts 6 weeks, the desired changes or additions are announced and other groups can indicate their participation. In the working phase, which takes 12 weeks, working groups and expert teams develop and write the specific text amendments or text additions. The working environment is a wiki. During the preview phase, lasting 6 weeks, all working groups review the proposed changes and vote on them. Decisions are made as consensually as possible. If a working group has a need for clarification, the issue is proven and we try to find a solution that everyone agrees with. We have a special group called Kompetenzgruppe RDA DACH Competence Group with cataloging experts who confer and discuss in such cases. In the implementation phase, lasting about 2 weeks, the changes and additions are implemented in the database in Wikibase, and the Committee for Library Standards has to give its approval. Then we can publish the new version of the STAR documentation platform. Where are we now and what is next? We have a freely accessible website. No login is required. You all can use this link and have a look. For RDA DACH, we published the first version in summer of 2023. Since then, 2 releases have been published, the last one in December 2024. In further releases, we will add more guidelines, resource type descriptions, instructions, and application profiles for RDA DACH, and also training materials for beginners. What comes next? In summer 2025, we plan to publish the documentation for authority data with guidelines and format information. More application profiles will be added gradually. Guidelines for recording subject headings are under development. And further information about standards for other communities like archives, museums, and other cultural institutions can be added too. In future, the STAR documentation platform will provide all recording guidelines, instructions, and agreements for the DACH region in one place. That's our aim. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michaela, for this very excellent and impressive presentation and demonstration, live demonstration of the platform. And I think it's a huge input. And thank you to Mathias as well in the background, who is more concerned with all these technical stuff, with Wikibase issues and all these things. Thank you so much. And I think there must be a lot of questions or comments now. And I would like to open up the platform for questions or comments. First of all, as I announced, for the RSC members. So I ask you all, my dear colleagues from the RSC, would you like to ask something or to make a comment or whatever to Michaela and Mathias? Charlotte.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that presentation and seeing your tool in action. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Charlotte, for bringing this up. The rest of the RSC, are there? Oh, yeah, here. Ahava showing up. Ahava, please.
I would also like to thank you. This was so amazing that in Israel, we've also decided to go with the Wikibase to document this. Would it be all right if we contacted the two of you for help because you already have done some of the mapping?
Of course. You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Perhaps you can write your email address, Michaela, you and Mathias, in the chat so that
Yes.
everybody can have it. So, further comments? RSC members? If not, I would like to open the floor to all of our observers, and we will be happy to hear from you. Thurston.
Hello. On my camera, I'll just see if I can.
We can hear you, but cannot see you.
Okay, all right. I will.
And the sound is not the best.
Okay, right. There I am.
Now we can see you. Hi, Thurston.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Thurston Young. I am the Collection Metadata Standards Manager at the British Library, and I am the British Library's representative in Europe. That was a fascinating presentation. I've been looking forward to seeing what the German community.
A bit frozen now, Thurston.
I will turn my video off.
Okay. Yeah,
can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Yes, thank you very much for that. I have a few questions actually. The first of which is, given the comprehensive nature of the tool that you're developing, will it be necessary at all for you to access the RDA toolkit itself? The second question is about how or if you are adapting your approach to cataloging from the old toolkit to the new toolkit. In the presentation, you mentioned the mode of issuance consisting of 4 different values covering monographs, serials, multi-parts, integrating resources, whereas the new toolkit separates mode of issuance only into single unit and multiple unit. Do you have any plans to adapt to the new toolkit scope for that element and other concepts going forward? And lastly, I noticed the references to Mark 21 mappings. Are there any plans to integrate the tool with BibFrame?
Okay, Thurston, I took a bit of notes to answer the three of your questions. Michaela, I don't know if you would like to start, or should I say some frame information, give some frame information about what we decided in Germany?
Yes, you can start and I will add.
You know, I was involved in the deciding process, in the decision-making process for this, for the RDA DACH, and for the German-speaking community, it was always clear to have a strictly connection with the toolkit and with the official RDA. But Michaela mentioned it at the beginning of her presentation. We just finished our first implementation, and then the 3R project came, and then we had to react and have to actualize what we were having for the time being. And as you know, libraries, there is not such a lot of money as we would like to have it. So it was a very realistic decision to make, just for a first instance, to stay along in the RDA context, to stay along with the toolkit, with the new official toolkit, because as Michaela mentioned, and everybody who knows it, that the original toolkit will vanish in some years. It was a very practical decision that the German-speaking community, let's say the Committee on Standards, made. Just make it as easy as it can, which take the policy statements we had in the old toolkit, revise them, actualize them, and bring them into an environment that all the catalogers can quickly go ahead with their daily work. This was an announcement of the Committee on Standards, which all the expert groups had to follow. And this leads me to your second question, Thurston. If the regulations, the stipulations in the manual, they will be revised and actualized someday. It's just, as we were always saying, in between these projects, it's just a first step to make guarantee that catalogers can go ahead with their daily work and to work. Because yes, you know, not a lot of stuff, not a lot of money in all the libraries, and to make it easier for everybody. And so step by step, the DACH manual, I think, Michaela can add it in, or Mathias, if you would like to, will come closer and closer to the new official toolkit, but this takes a bit of time. And for the time being, I think they are more than happy that they have a stable situation to go ahead with the work and have these platform, the technical environment. You have to take into account that this was a huge project to make this possible and to make this running and sustainably running. So they couldn't not, indeed, the expert groups couldn't not revise all the regulations, the existing regulations in this first step. So they took what they had and made it possible in a newer environment, and then next steps will follow for different things. And the last thing was the mark mapping, and if it is intended to have it for BibFrame, that I will give to Mathias. But first of all, perhaps Michaela would like to add something which I tried to explain. Sorry, Michaela.
Thank you very much. I can add the working group for cataloging in general in this DACH community under the Committee for Library Standards will discuss the concepts of the official, the new RDA toolkit again, and we will see what is applicable for our cataloging practice. But as Renate said, we couldn't do it now. We will do it in future, and we have other conditions. For example, for serials, we have many agreements for our German Union catalog of serials, which have to be considered. And but for example, the idea of the representative expression has been partly adopted for music resources. That was really useful and helpful for us, and the working group for music resources adopted it. Yes, so we try to make step by step.
Yeah, to follow up as fast as possible, but I think they have to be realistic as all of us.
Yes.
And Matthias, do you know, or Michaela, some plans about showing a mapping to BitFrame as well?
Not at the moment, so far I know. Yes.
Yeah, not for the time being. So I hope so. A person answer.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, everyone, for that feedback. That's really, really useful and enlightening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason, for the question and your comments. And in the chat, there is a question from Edelmann. Hello, from New Zealand. Perhaps you can raise your question here. Hi, Eva. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Renate. Yes, it is nice to see people. I've also got a raft of questions, some of which I'm going to be putting into the chat. But the first one that I was thinking of, and it was really interesting to see that the platform is based on Wikibase. And I'm thinking, yes, it seems to be that more and more libraries are beginning to use Wikibase as a foundation for whatever they're building. But I could see you going into the Wikibase what looked like in an edit mode. And my thought was, since the policy committee is looking at various ways of what guidelines are used, etc., is there any concern that everybody has edit mode access, or does everybody have edit mode access? Because my understanding is Wikibase is pretty well open to anybody who uses that particular platform, or have I badly misunderstood?
Matthias answered.
Thank you.
Matthias antwortet schneller, als ich das fragen kann. Only a small group of editors have access to run.
Yes, you can see it, but not do anything.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Eva. And further questions or comments from the audience? Bob, please.
Michaela, I was curious about the style notation and the RDA element pages. Were those the numbers like RDAE 005? Are they kind of random? It's like you've left space in between for other numbers. Are you trying to organize them some way, or what?
We organized these notations in the Reihenfolge, in the order of the original toolkit, and made steps 5, 10, 15, and so on, to have the possibility to have an element between two. We realized that we have to add some elements we didn't describe so far. And so the notations is built RDA, E for element, and then a number in steps 5.
To have the possibility to add in between elements coming up later on. But it's an own description of the German-speaking community, an own notation. And it's not any traditional notation. It was just made for the DACH manual.
Yes.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions? Take your chance. You have the experts here now. Heather, again, please.
Thank you. Yes, as I said, I've got a number of questions. Now, I understand that this is an interim and you're building on this, and as time goes on. But I was wondering, while you were building the platform, was thought given, or is there a process or workflow in picking up changes to the official toolkit? So let's say in one of the quarterly meetings, RSC decides that we will add either another element or another condition option, which may or may not then be useful. Is there, in looking at the workflow, the changes and in the workflow, is there a way of picking up these changes to then say, oh, well, this is actually going to have impact in the DACH community and therefore we want to use it, or no, we can actually ignore this?
Ist klar, Michaela, wie Änderungen, die im RSC selbst gemacht werden, nachverfolgt werden und umgesetzt werden?
Yes, thank you. We try to. We have a lot of work with this. The last year we were really very, very busy to make the STAR documentation platform running and usable and so on. And to add all the texts we like to add, like resource types and more application profiles and some special specific instructions for specific resource types. So there was not much time to look what happens on the official RDA toolkit, but we do this and we try to adopt what is useful for us.
I think these will be, or is one of the tasks of that, if you remember the overview Michaela gave you of the organization of the competence group, or what was the name, Michaela? Competence group?
Yes, competence
RDA.
group, yes.
Oh, competence group. Oh, got it. Competence group for RDA DACH. So that's one of their main tasks, to see what happens and if it will fit, if it's needed in the context of the DACH manual, and then to implement it. But the platform just started. I think we have to give them a bit of time to run.
Yes, please.
There weren't so many changes for the time being, but proposals and discussion papers are coming up more and more. So for the future, I think it makes definitely sense to have such a competence group. Just to keep an eye on this and to implement whatever is needed. Yes, because I think it was one of the intentions of the Committee on Standard for the decision to go this way, to maintain a close contact to the official toolkit and to RDA as a standard itself.
Thank you. If I can, just one follow-up question on,
Sure.
You mentioned application profiles. I was interested to see that in the single unit monograph application profile, there was the element key title, which of course is for serial works.
Yes.
I would have thought that the application profile would only cover the elements required for that particular type of material rather than have elements that would not be applicable, so they just wouldn't be in the application profile.
We decided to show the elements with the value not allowed. So you can see, okay, I can't use this element for my resource.
For avoiding discussions. Okay. So, further questions for our experts? Yes, there is a name. Oh, Chris, it's you. Sorry. Please go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was just looking at the list of resource types, a lot of which you've filled out quite nicely. I'm impressed, and then some of which are in preparation, I guess.
Yes.
And I am curious how you organize preparing guidelines for the specific resource types, like music or religious works or legal works. Like, do you assemble a team of experts within that field, or how is it done
Yes.
for these subject-specific resource types?
Yes, we have a working group for music resources, for example, and they are working on this topic. They write the resource type for music resources and add specific instructions and have an overview of all elements which are typically for this resource type, and these working groups have experts in the group are experts for music resources, special libraries and so on, and they make a proposal, and then other groups in the STAR community. I showed this picture of all the groups before. All look on the text and decide, okay, that fits to the other instructions, and it's okay, and then it can be published. And the working group for music resources, for example, is working since about 1.5 years on this resource type.
So there is a guarantee to have the connection between the special expertise and the general overview which fits, and that there is no contradiction from a special working group, for example, perhaps with a very exotic issue, with the general stipulation. And they are having a lot of special working groups from images on whatever you. They all are embedded in the structure. So
Yes.
It's guaranteed to have a good relationship to each other and no contradictions in the stipulation.
Yes, and they all work in this release process where in semi-annual releases, where all addictions and changes are voted from all groups.
So, yeah. Another question. Let's see. Yeah, Auden. Please.
Hello. Put on my video if it works.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Okay.
Nice to see
Do you
you,
see me?
Auden.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Moving to Norway.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from the National Library of Norway, and thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. We'll talk more later, I know, but I have a very specific question about the elements in the application profile. How does the hierarchy of the RDA elements come into play in your profiles? Is it when you say that some element is a standard or is a core element, does that mean that also the sub-properties, if there are any, are may be used, or how do you handle that?
For some elements which are super elements, like maybe Veröffentlichungsangabe, the publishing.
Publishing information, yes.
Yes, there's no value. There's only the information. Look at the sub-elements. Look at the year of publication and the place of publication and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only a hint. Yes, no value.
Okay, so you sort of choose the most general that is applicable, and then it's up to the catalogers to decide which kind of specific elements below that might be okay. That's
might be necessary. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Auden. Any more questions? If not,
There's a question in the chat.
sorry, from whom? I can't see the hand.
No, there's a question in the chat.
Oh, in the chat from Hong Yu. Oh, and I think Mathias was is answering it.
Yes.
The question's going, she's curious how to envision the management, the German, and to be really translation down the road. And Matthias said each statement is stored in Wikibase in both languages and tagged with the language tag. In the case of deployment, only the language is output at a time. Honghui, you raised your hand. Perhaps you can raise your question or
Well,
can add something if
thank
you would
you.
like to.
Yes. I'm curious because we also need to manage both language versions of
sure.
that. So yes, I'm very interested how you would do that. And thanks for the response.
Okay. So thank you. Last question, we have to, in respect to the time, we have to come to an end.
One quick question. I've just
Yes.
been having a look at some of the examples of individual elements. I wondered if there were any whole record examples as part of the tool that we could see, or are they only provided at the element level?
Vollständige Beispiele immer sind oder ob sie nur auf der Elementebene angegeben sind.
Oh, excuse me, ich habe den Anfang nicht verstanden. Sagst du das nochmal bitte, Renate?
Ob die Beispiele, ob das vollständige Beispiele sind oder ob sie nur auf der Elementebene angegeben sind.
Okay, thank you. In the element descriptions, the examples are only a special aspect to this element, but in the resource type descriptions, we have examples, we have full examples over all elements which are relevant.
Thank you.
So, thank you a lot. Thank you so much. Ganz vielen Dank to Michaela und Matthias.
Thank you very much.
It was a great pleasure to have you here. In the chat, there are your email addresses, and I'm sure there will be questions raised for you. And so, thanks a lot. You see the applause here on the screen. Thank you so much. Vielen Dank, dass ihr euch die Zeit heute Abend genommen habt. Good night to you. Have a nice rest of the evening, and we will be happy to see you somewhere.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.